All right, everyone. Hello, welcome back to Wireheads. This is our fourth-ish episode. This is our fourth real quote-unquote episode where we are live chatting with people on Twitch right now. We do have our Jay Gray interview, which if you haven't seen that yet, by the time this goes live on all of our podcasting platforms, YouTube and Spotify, we will have that up. I am in the midst of editing it as we record this. So if you're live on Twitch, you're probably going to get it sometime in the next, I would say 24 hours, because I'll be working on it a little bit after the stream tonight, as well as probably tomorrow to some extent. So with that said, this week on Wireheads, if you didn't already watch Diamond's half of the episode, this is part two. So she and I were just talking through Valhalla. She was taking lead on that one. And the April Fool's DLC that we got, which was anything but a joke. We got a full collaboration with Sukeban Games in the form of a DLC detailing Valhalla and everything to do with the characters, the setting, where it falls in Cyberpunk, the gear that makes a lot of what happens in that possible. All of that is detailed over in Diamond's side of this podcast. Now, for my part of this, we'll be going over the other DLC that we got about a week prior, a little more than a week prior, I think, which is the All About Agents DLC. So some of you may remember a discussion that I had once upon a time about how I thought there was something real goofy about asking, does my agent have a cell phone on it? Does my little piece of smartphone have a flashlight on it? We now have answers to that question that are officially written down. Rules is written. There can be no more confusion. Your agent may have a flashlight, because now we have some quality differences. So it does come as a potential option on some agents. So All About Agents opens with a interview between Three Piece and his husband Brain. And they're talking about kind of the history of and development of the technology of agents, and how they evolved from initially a game platform, like a mobile gaming platform, into a telecommunications tool, which is kind of where they sit today. So ultimately, the DLC, I'm going to kind of skim through the initial part of it, because it's a lot of exposition, and honestly, I would prefer you read that and not rely so heavily on our interpretation of some of this, because a lot of what is expressed at the top, I think, is going to vary GM to GM in terms of how you end up using it. But it describes kind of how agents have personalities. They are as much characters as, your PCs can be, potentially. So, like, your player character in the universe has their own, hopes, dreams, aspirations. And while your agent might not have hopes, dreams, or aspirations in the same way, it develops enough of a personality that it knows, how to order the things you need. It knows how to work out when you require, medical assistance, if you have the right cyberware networked up to it. We know from the many years of DLCs and content we've gotten for the game thus far that there's a lot of tech that networks with an agent. And so this goes down kind of how all of that kind of works. And the fact is that it is all parts comms hub, it is a smartphone, and it has, the ability to browse the data pool. It can manage devices if they're all smart networked to it. It's got apps. So all of this stuff is, detailed in the first handful of pages here after the interview. So a lot of the information about that, Matt in the Hat, thank you for the raid. I appreciate that. I don't know why because my alert box is disabled. That would explain it. Thank you for the raid. Hello. So welcome, guys. We are doing our podcast right now, so if we don't interact with you as much, please forgive us. But we are talking about the new DLCs. So we just got done talking about Valhalla, and we're just kind of getting into agents now. So a big part of the agents that they really try to drive home here is that they are characters. They are also the gateway, potentially, as a GM device to serve as that external voice of like, hey, guys, your agent is saying, hey, the last time we attacked Totentons, you had to get emergency medical aid. Should I pre-place a trauma team call for you to avoid unnecessary delay in response? And it's like this really snarky and subtle way of like telling your players like, maybe don't do that thing you're about to do. Your agent thinks it's incredibly stupid. And the subtext there is, and so do I. But like, it's a fun little thing. I quite enjoy it. Oh, I so apologize, LCC. You are right. I did not change my topic box. Thank you for calling that out. I will update.
Why is yours set to all about agents?
Yeah, I'm glad yours is all about agents. Let me do this. Sorry, guys. Give me a moment.
Yeah. Mind if I pick up the baton?
Go for it.
So, for me being a Netrunner and Emmerron also being a Netrunner fan, something else that's coming in with the territory is a new gadget as well. The Breaker. Mm-hmm. Now, there's one other device. I'm going to let Emmerron pick up more on that one just because of the excitement that came from this one. But the Breaker, of course, you have your agents. But did you know that you can violate other people's agents? You can violate that privacy. You can get into people's stuff now. Instead of just only the net architectures, a person's personal life is based around that agent. You can get into it with this special thing called the Breacher. Mm-hmm. A Breacher, you gotta be within 20 meters and you gotta be able to see the person. But with a successful electronic security check to bypass in enough time, well, pretty much that entire person's life is at your fingertips. What they look at, what they post on the garden, where they go, it's just a walking information bank for you.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I am extremely excited about Breachers, and as a result of, so techs obviously are like the first thought when it comes to anything technologically, like kind of hacking things and doing stuff like that, when it's like physical access, because it's like if I have to tear down this piece of plastic and like reveal the circuits inside, short them, whatever I need to do to breach that security, that's one thing, right? But if I wanted to maybe access them electronically and break them apart with code, they give us a bit of net running hardware, which is basically just straight buff to Netrunner, which is like, God, I cannot tell you how excited I am about that. So
finally we can do something like this.
Finally, yeah, because it's before this, we were basically told, hey, Netrunners, make sure you're taking electronic security tech and maybe pick lock so you could deal with locks and electronic devices that are not tied to a network. Now, because we have agent hacking abilities, we have this thing called a crunch whistle, which is a plugin for your cyberdeck that, while it gives no benefit to a net run, it does allow you to interface your cyberdeck with a breacher for the purposes of hacking a agent. So if you want to hack an agent, it lets you add your interface, whatever that is, to the electronic security tech check to take it over, which remotely is pretty difficult normally. But if you are a tech or a net runner, this gets a little easier because you're dealing with usually somewhere between like a +2 and a +4 to your skills, depending kind of how you've on a tech side of things, how you've distributed your points. When you're a netrunner, it's just your interface. So it's like if you've prioritized putting points into the interface, it is very, very good. So with that in mind, you can hack the agent remotely with a breacher. You can also gain physical access to the agent to hack it directly, and your DV gets easier. And the DLC also comments that if you do have a breacher and you have physical access, your DV gets even easier to hack it. So that is fascinating to me, first of all. They also describe that a breacher is a jailbroken and modified agent. So you're carrying around basically like a hacker agent to do this, which again, I love that little bit of tech flavor. I think that's really, really fun. The other thing too is if someone is suspecting that you've hacked their agent, they can try to force you out of there. They can take certain measures to counteract your control of their agent. But while you have control of it, you can activate different functions on it. So that would be like, so they give you 3 types of actions on here. And Diamond, if you want to kind of go through these, I know I have talked a lot, so go right ahead. I'll pass the baton to you for that.
Of course, when you jump in, I think this is as close to quick hacking as we're going to get in the Time of the Red. Mm-hmm. And you got 3 different categories here, and some of these things should only happen in the narrative space unless you want to sit around and just watch the turn order tick by. So we have activating a basic function. If you want to, send a fake notification, turn on the flashlight, mute the agent, or even just turn off the agent. In a matter of 3 seconds, it's done. If you want to activate a core function, run an app, make a phone call, upload or download a file, that's going to take a minute. And finally, for 5 minutes, you can change login credentials to lock the user out. You can also send the data to you to that breacher for 24 hours and just watch what this guy's been up to for 24 hours. And that would take 100 rounds, so 5 minutes. So you'll want to wait until like you're in a really good spot where you can just kind of sit there and let it cook.
Well, and I think a lot of these types of actions, to comment on the length of time they need, I think a lot of these are based to be more narrative anyway. I don't think you're typically going to get much benefit. Like, the exception is the basic function one, because I could, as I'm sitting here while you were explaining that, I'm thinking, okay, how would I take advantage of a 3-second basic function thing in combat? And I think about it as like, if you see the guy you're after go for their agent to call backup or something, you could in theory hack it and then activate a basic function to shut their agent off before they can get that call out. You could also in theory make their notification ding if they don't know you're there yet, and let that serve as a sort of signal or distraction so that the guy who's super quick and normally can dodge bullets doesn't see the headshot coming for them, or gives your crew a stealth bonus because now the guy who would otherwise be seeing you or have a chance at seeing you is distracted, right? There's a lot of really fun, like, I almost think of it like a Watchdog style, like sneak around kind of sub-stealth mechanic that you could do with this. That I love that. I think it's really, really cool. But yeah, the commands thing is really cool. I know myself and Nyla, who's one of the players in Neon Inferno, he and I were talking about how you could daisy chain agents together potentially using breachers to
really
do some, well, because think about it this way, right? If I do a secure function on it for 24 hours, I have a tie to that agent. So what if I have a bunch of agents that I've done this to, right? Some of them are just
boy.
I've willingly connected these things throughout the city. Like I've stashed them, dead dropped them, and I use them as a Tor router. And I now bounce all my web activity through these agents to the end point, which is this Corpos agent that I've just taken over, right? Well, now I can inject all kinds of fun stuff into that dude's search history. Or I can make a call, like I could spoof a swatting call through that. And it would get pinned on him.
Oh, no.
You could do all kinds of really crazy shit if you do this right. It requires a lot of prep. It requires you to be very thoughtful about it. But my thinking is this. Another complex function is you sideload an app onto their phone. And that app then can serve as a router node. Because the app is the thing running it now. It's not my hacking of it. My hack was to sideload the app. The app's running. Do you notice? That's a question, right? So you can do some really fun IRL hacky shit with this if you get creative, which is I anytime you tell me get creative with it and find out how to break this wide open, my brain is like very excited. It's so excited to figure out how to make those connections happen. So let me do. I did get a question. I'm just copying this over real quick so that I don't forget it. But yeah, like ultimately, I'm just extremely excited about like what this enables potentially.
All right.
But yeah, I'll copy this over, Diamond. If you have anything to comment on, by all means.
Ooh. For Q&A. Then I guess the next thing though, of course, is finally, agents are smartphones. Smartphones have apps. We kind of had an idea of like the garden, and then we got like 4 or 5 applications in Black Chrome. All About Agents brings a whole truckload of applications to us. Like Ask Alex Anything. Your truly trusted data crawler to find everything on the CityNet that you need. That probably also does not report your information to Ziggurat.
Probably. I love how they leave that ambiguous. It's probably.
Let's see. And then we also, of course, have Babel Chat, which is your text and instant messaging app. Users can also spend money for additional themes, emotes, and camera effects.
Beautiful.
That kind of feels like something between like Facebook Messenger, the messaging app, and Snapchat.
Yeah, no, I mean, even in like Facebook Messenger's camera, I believe you can do that. So yeah, like it's your ubiquitous like camera messaging, all that kind of like comms app. And it's important to know that both Ask Alex Anything and Babel Chat are both free. So they're literally free stuff. Yeah, Matt in the Hat, thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate it. You have a good night, man. Thank you so much. Probably also known as definitely, exactly. So yeah, the Babel Chat and the Ask Alex Anything are free. The next app is not, and I love the fucking name of this app. So we have Venmo, we have Cash App, we have Zelle, IRL, right? The money transfer app of the dark future is Bang Me. And that is not a demand. That is not a request I am making. It is the name of the app. It is called Bang Me with an exclamation point at the end. It costs 10 eddies to download. But it is an app made by Eurobank, and it is there to allow you to wirelessly transfer your eddies around, which is kind of fascinating, honestly. And I would imagine that this is one of those things that like if you have a lifestyle above kibble, you probably just have this installed in your phone anyway, and it would probably be free. That's probably how I would rule it, because 10 eddies is like, it's very cheap, and this would be one of those like lifestyle apps that like there's no shot you don't have something like this on your phone.
Then another one from Ziggurat is Big SAAI.
Big Sigh.
Yeah, Big Sigh. Oh, I just caught it. Oh. Okay. So normally an agent provides you a +2 to the library search. This AI boosts the speed and results of your agent's search function, and it brings you up to a +3 to your library search.
Yep.
The question is, can you tech upgrade an app?
Can you tech upgrade an app? I mean, why not? Probably be electronic security tech to do it, but yeah, why not?
Ooh.
That's why they're listed as gear, Diamond. They can be upgraded.
I'm just trying to think, like how, like Big Sigh, you could do. You could do the transfer, or well, Big Sigh, you can do like a +4. Now, Bang Me, I wonder if you could do that to just rip money from people's accounts.
That'd be too powerful. That'd be way too powerful.
Huh.
You'd start if you gave your players that kind of functionality, you'd be very quickly playing in Watch Dogs, not Cyberpunk. Where like every passerby, you've got like your phone out, you're like, all right, you got like $4,000, that's mine. You got like $2,000, that's mine. You got $1,000, that's mine. Like, and you'd just be sitting there like tapping your agent away. Now, this could, of course, be an adventure hook that you give your players. Like, all right, you've stolen from all these people. Now Eurobank has caught your fraud, or however, your wire fraud, or however you want to define it for them, right? And they're sending a hit squad after you. Defend, like, or clear your name or whatever, like you could, in theory, use that as a hook, which would be kind of fun. But yeah, I think that the tech upgrade is really way too strong. If in my opinion, but there are ways to make something like that work. Yeah. More likely, what you would do is potentially like maybe anonymized transfers or something with a tech upgrade. You'd have to think about it. I think we'd have to consider that. I imagine you create your own apps. Let's see. So Prepperjack says, hello Tito, welcome to stream. So Prepperjack says, I imagine you can create your own apps with altering secure apps that rely on a bunch of remote servers not under your control. Well, financial systems are notoriously well secured. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's kind of it, right? Like it gets to be real questionable, like how far you can really kind of take modifying or upgrading some of these. Let's see. And I do have Tito just dropped us another question for the Q&A, so I'll be looking at it here. But yeah, if you want to keep going through the apps, Diamond, while I get this format.
So we have a we have Brainwasher. It costs 50 eddies a month, and it's from No Brainer, a division of the ever so reliable Gunmart. This Psi-powered therapy app claims to be as good as any licensed professional. It provides rudimentary talk therapy, but cannot prescribe medication or brain dance chips. And also, you just run the risk that, you're going to be believing one thing and therapy just does not work.
Yeah. Think about the adware kind of like, come, meditate, learn, You're mine. Like, although that really weird woo-woo app space that like gets advertised all the time on like YouTube, or used to. Lately I haven't seen it as much, at least in my feeds, but like it used to be very like, I forget the name of it. There was like one in particular that was like ubiquitous. I would see it all the fucking time. It was like Calm or something like that. It's like you get an app like that and it's like it's free. It's like, great. Is it going to be worth anything to me as like an actual meditation or like therapy aid? Like that. I like what they did with this one. It's fun because yeah, there's just a 50-50 shot. It gives you, it's like it's either it's gonna bless you or curse you, right? It's gonna either give you a bonus to your empathy gain or a detraction to your empathy gain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beautiful.
Also, actually, you know what? Do you happen to have an app that seems similar to this app on your phone by chance, Emmerron?
I do.
Would you like to talk about this next app on the list?
I would. So, to my fellow nerds out there, and I know you're all in my audience because this is a tabletop podcast. Have you ever played World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14 and you're like, damn, I want a way to manage my shit offline? And then those of you who are like old, like me, might remember when World of Warcraft first introduced the WoW Armory app. And then later on, a couple years ago, we got one for Final Fantasy that functioned very similarly, a companion app. What if I told you Elflines Online had an app like that for your agent? Introducing the Elflines Online Elf Tracker. It is a app that lets you connect your ELO account to it so that you can check or show off your elf stats. So if you're in a, I don't know, a gamer bar where you're sitting there with your ELO deck and you're playing cards against some famous streamer. I'm not speaking from personal experience at all on this, by the way. You can like pull the cloud up and just be like, all right, check out my level 50 fucking Bark Shield. I know they only go up to rank 10. I'm a fake player, okay? But the idea here is that you could show that off. And you also can keep up with chat and track down that Duma who PK'd you and return the favor in real life. So basically, it's like the best combination of like the Final Fantasy character tracker kind of thing with your guild chat and stuff implemented. It also appears to have function based on that last line, like EVE Online with kill mail, where like you could see who killed you. And by extension, then be like, do you know this guy? And like just show it to someone. Like, yeah, I know that fucker. He killed me last week too, and I've been waiting to just get justice on his ass. And I've spent the last week tracking him down. He's at the hotel over on 3rd and 7th. Fucking get him. And it's like, yeah, that's now possible. So the Elf Tracker is it's a great app. I am so excited for that one.
And then, if you like social media, if you like the funny doom scrolling apps, you have The Garden, the most popular app after Ask Alex Anything. The Garden allows users to view and share content on the local data pool. Anybody that wants social visibility is here, and also The Garden includes The Garden Dating, which you use for digital dating in the dark future as well. It is 100% free, and users with Garden accounts can comment, post, and edit their own account.
This is Facebook, YouTube, big data, the app, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. I love The Garden. Like, and they've definitely, like, we've known The Garden has existed for forever. Like, they make constant reference to it in the core rulebook. And the ads are very like, hey, look at The Garden. So yeah, The Garden we've known about. But now we kind of have an official description. I do want to take a brief pause in talking about the apps to read this wonderful quote we got in here. I really love this because I have definitely said this to a phone of my own
dear.
before. So allow me to give you all this lovely reading. Work, you fucking useless piece of plastic, or I swear to Blackhand, I'll haul you into the hot zone, find an open nuclear reactor, and dump you into the damn fuel core. This quote was attributed to you, probably yelling at your agent. I love that so much.
Oh, I've never yelled at my agent. But that's also because I was actually good at library search.
Right. I've definitely yelled at mine before when I kept rolling ones on my library search checks. I've done that before. It's so good. So I guess I'll take the next app here. We've got the Hus tool, which is a 20 eddy app from No Brainer, which is our newly discovered division of Gunmart that sells apps, which is awesome. I love that Gunmart has an app distro for some reason. Like, it's so good. So everyone needs extra cash. Hustool lets you add jobs, or lets you do odd jobs whenever you have a spare hour. Just hit the big pay me button to get an errand, delivering takeout, humping a sofa up some stairs, or driving someone a short distance if you have a vehicle. Easy money. Let me see. Hold on. All right, thanks, Diamond, for that allowance.
How dare you?
Fucking okay, because I don't know how readable this is for all of our watchers, because I do have my chat box displayed, but this is so good. So LCC, Diamond treats her agent like an angel, just a whale baby that wants to help you find MILFs in your area.
SMH.
So yeah, the way the Hustool plays out is the GM determines what errands are available, and so this is kind of your counterbalance, Prepper Jack, to the thing you just suggested, which is you could just ask for 80 of these in a downtime session. So each errand takes half an hour, not including travel time, to complete and pays 10 eddies. Roll a d10. On a 1, the errand goes sour, the customer's not there, the restaurant's closed, so forth. The user spends the time, doesn't get paid, and on a 10, the user finishes the gig but encounters trouble. Roll an appropriated counter table for the time of day to determine what kind. So like, 1, this could get dicey. 2, it's only 10 eddies that you get out of it each time you do it. So like, if you really, really wanted to, you should probably just run an actual hustle during the week if it's something that like you have enough spare time to, because it's like almost guaranteed that it will be better for you than just doing a million runs of this. But yeah, I love it. I think like this is really good for those downtimes when you're like, the fuck am I gonna do with my downtime? You know, like if you've only got like a day and you're one of 4 and you're the only one who didn't take a hit in the last combat before this rest period, everyone else is mending their wounds and you're just sitting there like twiddling your thumbs and you're like, well, if I had a week, I would go hustle, and I don't have a week. I only need maybe an hour to go down to my local tech to drop off armor jack so that they can repair it. So what do I do with my remaining time? This. It's beautiful. I love it.
And then, for those of you who are Cyberpunk 2077 fans, from CDPSAA, the side-scrolling arcade hit that makes a jump to your agent. That's right, Roach Race shows up. And, of course, you follow Roach as he flees from Geralt. And, of course, jumping obstacles, eating carrots, and avoiding the monsters. And, of course, you could pay extra for different skins of the main character, including a hilarious stuff for Unicorn. It's a pixel art video game from Poland.
Yep. Roach Race.
I love this.
Roach Race existing in this is so good because it's like so much fun to play that just like randomly in 77. So yeah, I love this. It's a great little Easter egg.
And the fact that they just make a full blatant response to CDPSA, like the entire corp as, recognized by the time of the red.
Right.
That is good. I love that so much.
Right. No, I love it. Well, and I think it's because I think CD Projekt's I think they say San Antonio, but I could be wrong about that. I don't know if they have a San Antonio office, but either way, it's beautiful. I dig it. It's a lot of fun. So the next app is a 5081. That's another division of Gunmart. Well, it's from No Brainer, same division, but that is the developer of this. Watchbox uses your agent's existing sensors to cheaply secure whatever room the agent is currently in. It's easy to evade, but better than nothing. When the user sets the agent in the center of a room and activates Watchbox, it spends 5 minutes assessing the room, which must be no bigger than 20 meters by 20 meters, which is 10 by 10 in terms of like grid squares if you're doing battle map. Afterwards, so long as the agent isn't moved, any loud noise, flash, a bright light, or movement by people not in the space during the assessment detected triggers a loud audio alarm. Watchbox doesn't work as an internal agent or on internal agents. Intruders who succeeded a DV13 stealth check do not trigger the alarm. So yeah, it's fun. It's a neat little like audio tripwire if you really want to have that audio tripwire.
Honestly, it's a nice little line of defense, especially like in the example of Hyena. I know she's been looking for some options that she could just set, this out. So the typical random gonk can't just come sneaking up on you.
Right.
Because DV13, while it's a standard check for most edge runners, that can be a little bit tough for some of the lower level NPCs.
Yeah, for like random booster gangers or even like security operatives and things like that, it's not the easiest check to make. And then finally, just because it's really short and it's a free one, it's Zpost. It's your email app. It lets you receive and manage email and attached files. That's all it is.
The fact that email is still a thing in the dark future surprises me.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I still use email all the fucking time. So like for me, email is it's a part of life. I don't think we'll ever totally abandon email because you do need something that's more robust than just text messaging to like distribute files and things like that. So I think that's definitely makes sense that it exists because it still exists by the time of 77 as well. Because you have like your webmail stuff that you do on terminals and things.
Yep. Oh boy. So finally, the selection of agents. Now, they provide a bunch of examples of agents and what they come with. However, do we want to kind of knock out the Goliath in the room, or do we cover that because of spoilers?
Well, okay. I will stay away from the spoilers around it because we do talk about this with Jay a little bit in terms of so those of you out there in our audience who understand a thing or two about Tales of the Red Street stories, when we mention one of these agents, and I'll mention it up front, the MediaWare Brain Gen features in one of the stories. And in our conversation with Jay, we did discuss this in a spoiler masked context. So we actually flagged the episode to say, spoiler alert, beyond this point, skip to whatever timestamp it is. So we won't rehash that here, but know that they have a couple of examples in each of the internal and external agent categories here that are poor, average, and excellent, so that we kind of have a smattering of things. And the MediaWare Brain Gen is a poor quality internal agent, and it has some additional consideration for an adventure in Tales of the Red Street stories. So if you're a player, I highly recommend not reading the adventure in Street Stories. To GMs out there, I do recommend being aware of this if your players decide they want to get one of these, just so you are prepared for that. And I would also recommend watching our interview with Jay Gray because he talks about some ideas to do with this agent. So that is all I will say about it. And if Diamond has anything additional she wants to provide on this, by all means, but like, that is what I will say about it for this episode, because I don't want to spoil anyone on what this is or why it's important, but it is a plot point.
I think we've already knocked it out of the park as best as we can on that end, but one of the things that they do with selection of agents is they provide a very baseline version of characters. Just trying to think on here. I don't know if we want to go baseline, but when it comes to these agents, they give names and they give a variety of things that come packed on them. Right. Which, in fact, I think it was earlier in the DLC, there was a little caveat put out there that something that's installed on an agent is not as good. Let me look that up. But one of the first things that I was looking at is the EBM, the Euro Business Machines Peer 2. It costs $500. It's an excellent quality internal agent. It's an excellent quality internal agent. Not that it really needs it though, because it can't be hacked. But I'll check on that if you want to cover another item.
Yeah. So Prepper Jack asked an interesting question that ties directly into what we're talking about. So
okay.
He said, who would get a poor quality agent installed when the baseline is just 50 eddies more? Who knows? I think it would be something like, if you're playing like a gutter punk game and you're like, well, this makes more sense for my character to have because of its ease of, access or whatever. Sometimes you're like down to that last 50 eddies and you're like, how the hell do I
forgot.
Yeah. Oops. I forgot an agent. And you have other uses for that at character creation, so you just pick up the cheap one, right? I think that's probably, like with anything, poor quality agents are there as I want to spend my budget elsewhere when I'm making a character, or I need to save enough money for rent this month, but I do want an internal agent, so I'm going to buy this and save my eddies for like whatever cool stuff or rent or whatever, right? So yeah, ultimately, that's where I think that kind of comes in. So to talk about some of these other ones though, because we do have some excellent quality ones that are extremely interesting. So we've got an EBM PIR2, which is just an excellent quality internal agent, baseline, humanity loss of 1d6, or 3 static if you are taking at character creation. It's 500 eddies, and it describes it as improving reliability without increasing the risk of migraines. It's just, standard stuff. The one I'm excited about, because, and I told Diamond this, so those of you who are not giant lore nerds like I am might be surprised to know that what V is using in 2077 for his agent is based on a different piece of cyberware he has called a neuroport, right? So the neuroport comes with some chipware slots. It comes with a holophone, and I believe it technically is the interface for his Neuralink and interface plugs. So like neuroports do a lot. Neuroports are awesome. The way that they project visual data onto like his eyes, or their eyes, I should say. I play male V a lot of the time. So, but the way that V sees things on their eyes when they are looking at their agent isn't with Chiron. It's the neuroport is projecting that data straight onto their optic nerve. And we get the first case of this happening with the Rockland Augmentix neuron. So this is an internal agent that literally projects visual data onto the optic nerve. So you don't need to get Chiron installed with that.
Okay.
So it is the first kind of like tease of an agent that is modeling the holophone from the 70s, which is very cool. I think that is like the coolest part of this is that it's this line, like really neat lineup, and we know we're getting at some point this year the Cyberpunk Edgerunners mission kit. So I can only hope that that's like another like, hey guys, this is coming soon. I can only hope, because I'm like, I really want to get my hands on that fucking box. Cannot tell you how excited I am to buy that box. Holy shit. But yeah, that is like by far and away the agent that I am the most excited about in this, just because it is a tease to 2077 tech. And it costs 1,000 eddies. It's very expensive, but it is like so fucking cool.
Then, of course, we have our external agents, which follow up on the whole tool thing. The tools that are inside your internal agents, just while they are there or they may be available, they're just not as good as the IRL thing. Apparently,
Like,
is
so when you say tools, you mean things like your flashlight and stuff, or
your flashlight, your microphone, and other bits of equipment like that. There seems to be a much more narrative addressed DLC, which I appreciate. But, you know, of course, we have the classic Segatari double agent, which this is the first agent. It looks like a little game console. It's a poor quality agent with a touchscreen, and oh gosh, I'm trying to think what it would be described as outside that. It seems to be a what was it? Pet project for one of the people introducing this item.
I mean, I don't know about a pet project, but it's definitely like, so they talk about it as being a black clamshell design, so that'd be like a flip phone kind of thing. It sounds more like it is it'd be like having like a Nintendo DS that you use as a telecommunications tool.
Yeah, I was just trying to think what Segatari was doing with it, and oh gosh, a 3D. Oh, yeah, I feel old.
It was a game console. It was a game console. But yeah, it'd be like using what, Jesus Christ, on the OG DS. Yeah, using like Pic-to-Chat as your main form of communication. And then when the data crash happens, that becomes the predominant telecommunications thing. So the company's all right, so we're going to scale this up now. We're going to create Pic-to-Chat hubs. And that's the first CityNet stuff gets based into that.
Oh. I'm sorry, chat. I'm having a moment here of just like, I remember when that was a thing, and I was young when Pic-to-Chat was a thing. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, even like I was, I think 13, 12 or 13.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I might have even been younger than that actually, but yeah, I was not very old when the DS came out, and I remember like my brother and I shared a room, and we would do Pic-to-Chat. Like as we're like pretending not to sleep under the covers, like of our respective bunks, and we would just be Pic-to-chatting to each other so we could talk and our parents wouldn't hear us. So that's cute. I like the idea, because this really does signal this was a game console, right? But then you get at the very top of the DLC, we get artwork of two agents, which are listed in the same section, the Zetatech Grade A and Grade A Plus, which are like your iPhone, basically. It's like your iPhone or iPhone, you know, like you have the 14 and the 14 Pro, like it's the same thing.
Or you have the Galaxy and the Galaxy S.
Right, yeah. What is this, Merlin? Yeah. My eyes are dying on me here. So yeah, the Merlin is a wrist-mounted agent. So if you wanted to be cool and have a wearable, like that's your solution to that. Which I love that. I think that's really cool. And it gives you a +1 to wardrobe and style.
So overall, what do you rate All About Agents in your books?
Oh, I think it's a great DLC. Ultimately, I really think that there's been a really long time, and this is where like we had this whole discussion. I know I made a video about it not long ago, or maybe I think it's not long ago, but it might have been a couple months ago now that I actually think about that for a sec.
Which video?
I need to like go back and check. There was a it was talking about using, I think it was like using GM agency, or I'll look it up in a moment here so I can like tell everyone kind of what it is. But it was a video talking about how GMs do have empowerment, and like what you are able to use in the game is not based solely on the rules as they are written. They are, to an extent, you're allowed to experiment. You're allowed to expand beyond just your average creative liberty. There it is. It was 4 months ago. That's where I was like, oh, it might have been a little longer ago. But it's How to GM Cyberpunk Red episode 21. I talk about this a little bit. There was a discussion back in the end of last year on the Discord that I screen capped because I'm like, I'm going to make an episode about this because of how goofy the argument was. Where someone came into the Artal Discord and they had asked, like, does the agent have a flashlight? And I was like, well, I mean, like, this has a flashlight. Why wouldn't the agent 20 years down the road have a flashlight? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, of course it would have a flashlight. Well, that was like my knee jerk. Like, yeah, of course it would have a flashlight. Why wouldn't it have a flashlight? What would be the purpose of not having a flashlight on a device like that? Like, especially if it's like a smartphone, that probably means it has a camera. Probably means you can take pictures with it, and then you need a camera flash. So of course you've got something that can emit light on there. Like, and this player, like, this is not meant to mock the player, and I say as much in that video too, but like, the player came because they were being told by their GM that if it wasn't written in the rule book that the agent had something, the GM's ruling was that it didn't have it because he was running the game rules as written.
Oh,
thank you, Diamond. So,
sorry.
No, that wasn't a sarcastic. That was a thank you for saying what I'm thinking. Because I truly do think that's not a good take. To be polite about it. I don't like the argument in any tabletop, cyberpunk or otherwise, that just because an item isn't described as having certain features or operating a particular way, if the absence of that function doesn't, or let's put it another way. If the presence of a particular function on an item does not make it somehow break the game or overpower mechanics that are built to check and balance the game as a whole, you shouldn't tell the player that no, it doesn't have that out of hand, right? Like, there could be a reason why it doesn't have those things, but it's never as open and shut as this. No, that's not how it works. It's, well, why do you think it works that way if you don't agree with them, right? But so often, especially in games like Cyberpunk, where it's a modern setting with modern technology to an extent, right? Like, those sorts of things are just like, yeah, of course it has it. Like, whenever we talk about, like, all right, the scene is on a boat, right? The scene is on a boat, and the, like, we think in our minds, right? Because I actually had this. This was a scenario I was in as a player. We're like, okay, cool. We're on this cargo boat, and we're trying to get this thing back to the city. And we were looking to patch up our wounds or something. And we were looking up, and I was like, well, the boat would very likely have a first aid kit on it, right? And even though the adventure that my GM had written said nothing about that, he's like, yeah, you're right, it probably would. Because the logic of it is like, of course it would. Because every boat that you've ever been on in any context has a first aid kit on it. Unless it's like your family friend's boat. If it's a professional grade boat of any kind, though, you're gonna have those things, right? The accessories on an agent are no different. So this long ramble to explain that in the video I say, like, use liberty, use creative liberty, be okay with like things not always being spelled out for you, like verbatim. Anytime it is spelled out for you, it's just better, right? Like that is just full stop, that is better. And so now that we have a document that details like the bulk of what an agent's functions are, it is better for it. The game is better for that specificity. It is better to have that knowledge and like to have some, honestly, just having some brand names, right? Like who makes our agents? We didn't have that before this DLC outside of like
I didn't
media.
Realize Segatari made agents.
Right. Well, and that's so cool, right? Like just having that bit of history is cool. So to me, that's where I get to it. I think it's an awesome DLC because even if it doesn't change your game mechanics a ton, it doesn't affect your, rules as written really a ton. It doesn't add a lot of flashy new tech that has a billion modifiers on it. Just knowing what it is and how it works is so, like, I cannot tell you how good that is for a just bevy of different reasons. So yeah, this is a good article just from the standpoint that now, if ever there's a question about what an agent can do, anyone who knows this article exists can point back at it and say, here's where they've written all their thoughts about how agents work and what they have on them and what options are available for your players should they want to do something different than your standard 100 Eddie agent in their opening lineup, right? That is, I love this thing so much for that exact purpose. But yeah, what do you think about it, Diamond?
All about agents. Well, you did cover a lot of like where covers things for rules is written and so on and so forth. It I understood that agents had some form of interaction with their users, but I didn't realize how much of an impact that your agent would have on you as a manage your personal life. And the fact that I had been neglecting NPCs basically. I want to get better about it, but it also just creates that extra layer of almost capitalist horror that your agent is always watching.
Right. Yeah.
Watching what you're searching and all that good stuff. For me, it was a very necessary addition that was needed, and it came in at a pretty good time.
Right. And I think it does a lot of good spelling out, like you're saying, of some of those core concepts that, like, if you think logically about it, they would have the ability to listen on you, but, like, this really spells that shit out.
All right. You think it's time to tackle some Q&A?
Yeah. So, guys, again, if you have submitted questions, if you're here on the live stream, I've been cataloging them as you've asked them. I've stopped several times mentioning that specifically. But if any of you are listening either on Spotify or on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, this is going to be where we transition over to that QA segment. If you haven't listened to Diamond's half of the show, it is linked down in the description so that you can go to it easily. I highly recommend doing that before listening to the Q&A, since some of the topics we discussed during it may have to do with what she's already discussed. So definitely give that a look. If you are on Spotify or YouTube, though, and you do want to submit us questions, you have two options. If you're on YouTube, you can put it down in the comments. If you're on Spotify, you can email us. We have our email listed in the show notes. It is wireheadspod@googlegroups.com. If you send us an email there with your question, we will add it to our document and we will respond to it as soon as we are able to. Obviously, going through things, we might need more than a single week. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive into Q&A. So let me update my topic box real quick so I don't forget to do that. Because I made that mistake at the start of the segment. It's like we both were like, oh, I was doing so good. All right, beautiful. All right, cool. So Q&A. So this is one I got on a video, I believe. It was either a video or it was a Twitch comment on stream at one point. How does one do a song and dance number in a TTRPG mechanically without having the players themselves sing or dance, but also not reduce it to like a singular series of just really arbitrary dice rolls and like make that feel impactful? Diamond, I would love your input on that because I've got some ideas, but I want to hear.
I have actually had to deal with this.
Really?
Yes, I've had a character that had this come up. And depending on who you're dealing with or interacting with, it is a situation of like, I took this one out of Fallout 2D20's playbook, where you have to have a certain number of successes.
That's fair.
So, what I did is that, throughout the performance, you would have best of 5 for your performance, and also if you describe to me what you're doing during that performance, during that dance, I will adjust the DV, and it all hovers around a DV 13. Sometimes it gets easier, sometimes it gets tougher.
Sure.
And best of 5 determines who succeeds in a situation like that.
I like it.
What I've done.
I like that. I would probably do something similar. Yeah. Skill gauntlet makes the most sense. And you make it very narrative. Like as each kind of turn of it happens, you're gonna describe like how this is playing out and stuff. And like singing is, of course, like I don't know how you like really emulate the singing outside of your singing checks, because they do have a singing check in I guess, do we have an actual singing check in
it's play instrument singing.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Via your but you can also get a piece of general gear to help boost that one in particular.
Right. That's what I thought. It was a play instrument check still. Yeah. Okay, cool. Because that's where ultimately, like, you want the song to be a song. Like, the players might, like, I'm not saying that this is you, the GM, should compel your players to sing, but like, you're just going to be rolling play instrument or dance checks. Like, the whole.
I give brownie points for method acting.
Yeah, me too. I decrease DVs for method acting at my table. If people want to risk that and like go all in, I love it. I personally love that. I know some players are like, or some GMs rather, are going to be like, man, I don't want to have my players singing. They do not have singing voices. And I'm like, whatever. Like I've been in choir. I've been in like choir at my church, choir at, in high school. I've heard good singing, bad singing, mid singing. I can deal with it. It's not that cringy. I think it's more fun to just live in the moment. But I agree. Skill gauntlet with adjusted DVs for like what they're doing or saying or singing or whatever makes sense. So the next question is, how viable is it? Whoopsie, there we go. How viable is it to play a zero cyberware character? Are there pieces of cyberware that are so beneficial that not taking them could be seen as shooting yourself in the foot?
No.
Possible, yes. But yeah, Diamond, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
If you, shameless promotion, watch Team Control Alt Delete. Omen is a zero cyberware solo. And she has proven that Sasha plays, and she has proven time and time again that you can have a meat over metal mentality and still be able to keep up with everyone else. And honestly, you can play a zero cyberware character. Sure, with Cyberpunk, why not get some chrome and whatnot? It really depends. Some folks may just avoid that.
Yeah. Well, and there's some roles in the game that actually benefit from not having it either. Because if you're playing a media or a rocker boy or even a fixer sometimes, not having that chrome is going to allow you to do better conversation, better human perception, which are all pretty essential when you're doing like socializing. Like if you're a face forward kind of character, you're going to want high empathy. Now, that said, sometimes it's not possible to play a no cyberware character. Again, it's going to vary pretty significantly by role. But netrunners can't be no cyberware. We just don't have that option. So like netrunners are always going to be involving some degree of cyberware. So yeah, having a high empathy netrunner is a bit more of a challenge. Although you should be, in my opinion, if you're making a netrunner, you should be rolling them with 7 or 8 empathy to start with anyway, because you are going to have a lot of fucking cyberware that goes into like doing your job well. So that said, roles are going to determine this. Socially, I don't know that you, I don't know if you socially need much cyberware, right? Like if you're a social role and your focus is social interaction, I don't know that any of the social cyberware we have so far is so powerful. Fashion wear doesn't really count though, because it doesn't affect your empathy. Anything that's fashion wear doesn't affect your empathy. So you can get fashion wear and not have that affect you. That's why like things like biomonitors are considered fashion wear, because they're not really impacting you that way.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Trying to think if there was someone else. I'm trying to think if there was anyone else I might know of that is either very low weapons or no weapons.
Like I don't know about no weapons. Like weapons are, I don't know that I'd recommend playing an edge runner that can't fight in some capacity.
I guess no chrome. Oh.
Right, chrome is the question, because as far as like a fighter that uses no chrome, can you be effective as one? Sure.
I mean, Omen has proven that.
Right, but do you get more effective if you have some chrome? Yes, because you can't take advantage.
I think for solos, absolutely.
Yeah, because like you can't really take advantage of smart gun links, which are another +1 on your shooting. You can't take advantage of smart ammunition because that requires you having a targeting scope in your eye. So, like in theory, you could put targeting scope in like smart lens or smart glasses and have that do that for you. But you do still, if you want the smart gun link, you need to have a subdermal grip or an interface plug, the neural wear, and the link in the gun itself. So like, you're missing out on +1 if you don't get that, and that +1's pretty impactful. Beyond that, like, I mean, embedded armor is a thing, so you can get like subdermal armor, which is very powerful. I tend to get subdermal armor on almost every one of my Cyberpunk characters after a while, because it's just really powerful. It's really, really useful. They can't take it off of you, and admittedly it takes longer to recover it than you would normally need for like a standard armor jack. But the fact that I can just rest and let my armor repair itself is like massive. If I have a week to spend, I will never be without my armor. which is like just incredible. I think that that's really powerful. I think also that there's a line in the sand there of like, for example, my wife and one of our friends wanted to play femme fatale type characters that were like, yeah, we want to seduce and then be dangerous. And I'm like, very cool. You probably want subdermal armor then, because like otherwise you're going to be quite literally naked without armor, right? And that's like potentially very dangerous if you're dressing down a ton, right? But if you have subdermals, you don't have to worry about it. You're always armored like you have light armor jack or skin weave or something like that, you know? Corpos could do fine without cyberware because, yeah, their role doesn't really affect them. At that point, it's more about what do you value in your corpo, and how do you want to make, you know, your exec work compared to like their teamwork or whatever. But yeah, execs could do fine without it. High empathy for execs could also be really helpful because, again, human perception is kind of like the whole shtick there because you want to make sure that you know when someone's feeding you a line of shit. But yeah, I don't know. Have you thought of anything else you want to say about that, Diamond?
I like Zero Cyber, like I don't know if there's like really anything I could say against it, just because like I currently have someone that has proven against Zero Cyber. Sure, that's put it to proof that you can still be an effective fighter. Yeah. Sure, I've nearly zeroed Omen, but Omen still was able to get up and keep going before it was too late.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like, and that's kind of it. I think, like, yes, you can do it, but you need to be aware that there are certain roles or certain capabilities your character will not be as good at doing if they have no cyberware. That would be my biggest, like, caution. If you're planning on having a character like that, just be aware of what you're giving up if you're going to do that. All right. So Diamond, did you have any questions, by the way, that weren't on the sheet already that you wanted to bring up?
I don't.
You do not. Okay. So then our next question is, if someone is at risk of going cyber psycho, are there ways to mitigate that risk before the implant of new cyberware, such as placing them into BD therapy as they wake up from the procedure? That's a really interesting little concept.
Oh goodness, that kind of creates an endless loop of I'm nearly cyber psycho. I go to therapy. I go get borged up. I'm going cyber psycho. I go to therapy. I'm gonna go get more borged up.
That is the cycle, though. That is the cycle. That is the way it works. But it costs money every time you do that. So
absolutely.
The financial viability of that might not be in your favor.
And for me, like, the way I've always ran it is that, like, therapy, there's no way you can effectively have therapy after getting out of surgery. You need at least a day before you can really get going on humanity loss therapy, because, like, you are literally coming up out of it. You've, gained a new piece of cyber. Your legs are now gone. And now you have two machines dangling off the end of your torso.
Yeah. Yeah.
And slowly over time, those that, become the danger slowly gain very accustomed to their surroundings, that they can just tell when something's wrong. And in this case, with cyber psychos, at some point, your character, like, even the GM could probably rule this being something with that. You're going to lose that feeling of something is wrong because you grow so numb that cyber psychosis is going to catch up and bite you. And then suddenly you are gone while you are on the operating table.
Yep. I do like that kind of thinking that, you need at least to give it a day of recovery. The other balancing act I saw that someone mentioned there is that if you're doing that, in theory, you need to spend that whole stay in the hospital getting that treatment. And so if you are going to do that, then you need to spend per night at the hospital in addition to the costs of just doing the therapies and stuff like that and the surgeries and things like that. So like in effect it adds like a 700 Eddie bill on top of the other costs of the procedure and the therapy, which could also be a neat balancer for it. I think both are good. I think both are worth their weight. I think this comes down to more how you want to do it as a GM. If your players are usually getting their Ripper work done at the corner clinics, like what Vic has in 77, then like the odds that they can just get BD therapy right out their procedure after is unlikely, because those Rippers are probably not licensed in the same way or have the facilities that a hospital would to like properly administer both to you in sequence like that. If they do go to a hospital though, they might be able to, and then that becomes expensive. That would be the way that I would rule that, because they either take a massive financial hit then, or they just can't do that, and they have to like be balanced about how they approach their their installation of new cyberware and the therapy around it.
Mm-hmm. For me, there has to be a line that's drawn when it comes to that, so that way it doesn't become a game of tactics and numbers, and you continue to keep that storytelling element involved.
Yeah, I agree. And because I think that empathy is more than a game mechanic. It is a direct reflection of how put together your player or your character's mind is, and their mentality is when they go on gigs and things. If you have low or no empathy, you are going to be like much more prone to psychotic breaks, violent outbursts, acts that are incredibly dangerous or reckless. Like they are as much a roleplay guide. Like that stat is as much a roleplay guide as anything in your life path, in my opinion. So yeah, it needs to be treated that way. It needs to be respected that way. And it isn't just a gauge that you need to refill before you empty it on cyberware. That is a distinction that needs to be respected, I think. So the next question, and Diamond, I know you've done more in this arena than I have, but what is the coolest homebrew item that one of the DLCs inspired you to create?
Oh boy. Probably for me, one of the things I've created, more on behalf of Midnight with the Upload, was like, we have all these different kinds of new hardwares and cyberdecks that are produced. Something I produced as a like one-time use software that you can load onto your deck is a quick virus. It's a pre-planted virus that already has its DV determined. You just have to beat the DV to install the virus, and it's quickly installed, and the effects happen almost immediately. However, anyone can notice if they beat the creator's tech check for it.
I think that's cool. So you kind of like cookie cutter a virus, and then like basically just spend like a net action implanting it into the spec of the net that you actually want it hacking. That's cool.
Whatever virus you want, you make it, you hold it. One of my favorite viruses I have is Brick. Literally, you get down to the bottom of that net architecture, and it takes a little while for it to upload. But as soon as it does, every single way to log into that network is gone. You brick the network.
I love that. I love that. That's usually like a 9 net. That's like a 9 net action virus if left like organically at the bottom. For when a player of mine wants to do that, that's usually the way I assign. It's like a 9 or more net action, like 3 rounds. You're going to be spending bricking this thing. But yeah, I love that. I think it's really cool. For me, I think one of my favorite things, because a lot of my it's not so much homebrew I've made. It's more like it's guided my thoughts when techs have been at my party, and a tech wants to come up with something that is not, entirely within the rules. So probably there are 2 items that come to mind here. The first is one of the things that Maya made at the start of season 2 of Neon Inferno. She invented a grenade launcher round that was like a 40 millimeter shell, and it was a single round, not an explosive. Mm-hmm. So she would just shoot it, and it would do 66 to 1 target, but it would fire out of her grenade launcher like any other grenade. So she could shoot it at a target as a single round, which I love that. I think that like expanding the functionality of weapons is always a fun way to kind of homebrew them. And it led to us like discussing around like, how do we balance it and stuff like that. And, all that sort of stuff. But I did like her, just the simplicity of having, here is a soda can round. It is going through you. No, you do not get to argue about this. I loved that. The other item that comes to mind, and I feel I have to mention this, given that the character that made it died on Monday. We had Blue, whose whole character concept was he is a drug tech. So he was your hookup for any street drugs you wanted to get. And he created gas grenades that would disperse blue glass into rooms and make everyone in the room flash out. So we would blend a smoke grenade, blue glass, and osmosis compound to make blue glass smoke grenades that would seep into your skin. So even if you had a gas mask or nasal filters on, if you didn't have the ability to beat the, we basically just ran it off of the addiction check. Basically, if you couldn't beat a DV15 resist drugs torture and your skin was exposed, you just start flashing out, and you have to roll concentration checks for the rest of the combat to do anything through the demons that you're seeing over your vision now.
That is rough.
It was so much fun. Like and he specifically tailored the tech to have a super high resist drugs torture check to evade the negatives from impacting his character, which it was beautiful. Honestly, it was really beautiful. I loved the creativity involved with that. Because all he's doing is taking a bunch of these other things that exist due to Hornet's Pharmacy, and then like throwing some things together and saying, can I do this? And I'm like, fuck yeah, that's so cool. Because it's such a gutter punk way to solve problems when you're like, I need to incapacitate an entire room of people. How do I do it? I'm going to make them high as shit and make them trip balls. And they're going to see God and the universe before them. And we're going to slip by while they're just out of their gourd. It's a beautiful solution. Truly, it was novel. And that is probably one of my favorite items I've ever seen. I love that fucking item. So we are coming up on time, but we do have just one more. And I think this is relatively simple.
Relevant. Yeah, it seems like very relevant to today's episode.
It is, yeah. So apps are code, true. So if your players don't want to give their information to corpos and make their own app, is that a netrunner or a tech's forte? So is that something a netrunner or tech would do? The simple answer is a tech, because they need to invent. And the invention part of that necessitates that they create things. And they kind of cover this. There's like a Q&A document that they released for Red a while back, asking about who makes new programs, is it a netrunner or a tech? And I think this follows kind of the same logic, which is that while a netrunner can code, the tech actually needs to upgrade or invent new ways of those programs working for a netrunner's cyber deck, because they rely on hardware. much in the same way a tech would need to think about, like, how does the electronics work out or factor into the, technology of an agent or its capabilities, and how does that all interact? Because then you get into like the electronic engineering side of it in addition to the programming. That said, I do think netrunners could help, but they would be providing an assistance to it, not the thrust of the work.
Yeah.
That would be my response.
Yeah, definitely when it comes down to it, techs are very much more that know how to produce the item, where netrunners are very much more using that item to produce results. So I don't see netrunner being the viable option here when it comes to making the program, as you could know, like for me, I know how to run a computer. I don't know jack about what's inside my computer. Okay, I know a little about what's inside my computer, but that's kind of where the difference is.
Right. So yeah, ultimately you're going to need a tech. If you're inventing new stuff that doesn't exist or upgrading stuff that does, you need a tech. Full stop. That's just the way it is. But yeah. So any final thoughts then, Diamond, for this week's episode?
Well, I have some exciting news I'd like to share, at least.
That
I got word back from Miss Bull Berman of Free League Publishing. And while this is still a little ways down the road, when we get closer to whenever Free League announces and it gets close enough for Replicant Underground, Tomas is open to having a discussion with us.
That's very exciting. Okay. Now I am 100% down for this.
So this will probably be later in summer or early in fall, but there's that. And also, chat, of course, if there's people you want us to talk to, you can, recommend them to us. But also on top of that, I don't know, if we're trying to figure out, reach out to someone that seems to be in the dystopian table.
Yeah, like definitely let us know. We're familiar plenty with Artal, and we've got ins at like Free League, so we could probably get in with the guys at Stockholm Cartel, or obviously like Tomas, who was the writer for Blade Runner. But yeah, if you have other projects and things that you want us to like interview people, or even like authors and things like that of stories that you like in the tabletop space that you want us to look into, definitely reach out. Either hit us up on our Discords, on our YouTube comment sections, or email us. Again, that's wireheadspod@googlegroups.com. If you send any of that information our way there, we'll receive it, and we can do a little digging in the back end to try and make those connections and bring that information to you. Because I know we definitely have goals to talk with a couple different people in the future, but we do definitely want to bring you information and interviews that you all find interesting as well. So, but yeah, I think ultimately that's going to do it for us then this week on Wireheads.
Yes.
So thank you all so much for joining us. Again, this is the end of the episode now. If somehow you still haven't gone over and watched Diamond's first part of this week's episode, if you're watching this on YouTube, the link is down below for you to do that. If you want to get in touch with us or follow us on any of our socials, go sign up for us at StartPlaying. Any of that, it's down below in the comment section of this episode. So feel free to check us out wherever we are. We do a lot of content that isn't the podcast, so definitely we'd love to interact with you in all those spaces and ways that we are available. But other than that, I hope all of you have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon wherever you're on the world. Stay healthy, stay safe, and until we see you again, peace.
Be safe out there. Good night.